This is Jenny Jo Allen with lineyourlight.com, and I have a bit of a raw story to tell you guys today. We all need help from time to time. Even the healers need healing sometimes. So my story is about when I was 8 years old. I was molested when my family was traveling in Mexico. Interestingly enough, I buried that memory. Back then we weren't talking about sexual abuse. We didn't have, language like we do now for kids. And so I didn't know what to do with the information. I had all these feelings and I buried them. I had this little toy animal that I got when I was in Mexico, and we went to a beach right after it happened. And I actually buried the little animal and I couldn't find it. And so that's also what happened to the memory. The memory got buried. So I literally buried that memory. And I didn't remember about it until my girlfriends in college started talking about their sexual abuse stories. And so here's the weird thing about buried memories, is that at first when you start to remember something, it's like, oh my God, I'm making that up. Like something will trigger it and the memory will begin to surface. And so when it happens organically like that, it can take a pretty long time for the entire memory to become known. And at first, like I said, there's this stage of like, oh, I'm making that up. That didn't happen to me. And so that's how I felt when I was listening to my girlfriends talking about their sexual abuse stories. I was like, I'm just making that up because they were talking about that. And then pretty soon, after about, I think it was like between 6 months and a year before the entire memory came back in full clarity, like total detail. And I remembered all of the different parts that happened. I remembered that little animal that I buried. I remembered, the way that I felt. I remember how I got away from him. And so what I really wanted to talk about is the difference between remembering something that happened, some kind of trauma experience, and actually healing it. There is a huge difference. So when I was in college, I'd never been married, I didn't have any kids. I'd had a lot of relationships, very short ones, but I didn't draw any parallels between the way that I behaved in the world and what happened to me as an 8-year-old. Until I was going through my second divorce. I was going through my second divorce. I had 2 kids and I was like, oh my God, I'm broken. Something's wrong with me. And I was really struggling with trying to figure out, how do I fix whatever it is that's wrong with me? And so back then I was a single mom again. I was living in a yurt, which is basically a glorified tent. So I was really struggling, and I took my last $100 and I spent it on a healer who took me through this process. Basically, I came to her, I sat down in her squishy chair, and she said, okay, why are you here? And the first thing that happened to me is I burst into tears. And I'm not a crier, so it was really weird, and I felt really embarrassed for crying. And then she said, tell me why you're here. I burst into tears, and then I proceeded to tell her that story of when I was 8 years old and we went to Mexico and I was molested. And I was like, the whole time I was saying it, I was like, oh my gosh, this is so stupid. I can't believe I'm wasting my last $100 talking about this. I already knew that this happened. Why am I saying this? Like, I had all this huge judgment on myself, but that's what came out of my mouth. So I just went with it. And she said, okay. And she was making notes and stuff like that. And she started pulling out all of the disempowering thoughts, all of the energies that were connected to that event and everywhere that had affected me in my life. And she was pulling them out and pulling them out and pulling them out. And then the weirdest thing happened, you guys. I was like, okay, so when she was done pulling them out, then there was this little pause and she was gonna do something else. The session wasn't over, but I was like, I have to pee. I could not go any further without going to the bathroom. And she was like, are you sure? Because we're right in the middle here. And I was like, I'm absolutely sure. I have to get up. And the weirdest thing happened, because when I got up out of that chair, I felt like I had no insides. My insides were completely gone. I felt like I was an exoskeleton walking. I walked myself to the bathroom and somehow I got back and I sat down in that chair, and then she started putting in all the affirmations, all of the affirmations that were the exact opposite of all of the debilitating, you know, decisions and beliefs that I had created from that one event. And when I was done with that session, you know, it's not like my life magically changed, but I changed. I changed inside. My belief systems shifted, everything shifted for me. And I went on to getting married and being in an 11-year relationship. So my point is that with that healing session, I was able to get the incredible clarity of exactly how that event had affected my life, had totally hijacked my relationships, had infected the way that I thought about people, and in particular about men. I was able to connect up different things that had happened in my life that directly related to that one trauma event. And in that healing process, it resolved so much that I had been carrying around with me that I didn't even realize I was carrying inside of me, that were affecting all of my decisions, affecting my behavior, affecting my belief systems, and affecting my life on this really foundational level. And so that's the story that I want to bring to you. There is a huge difference between knowing what happened and actually healing it, resolving it. This is why I do healing work, because I've had such an amazing transformation in my own self, and this is what I love to give to other people. So what I'd like to invite you to do is learn a little bit more about the process that I use for helping intuitive women who are going through intense patterns that are getting in the way of them living their full potential and being on the path that they really want to be on. All right, so just click on the link below to learn a little bit more about what I offer and how I can help you. And I hope to talk to you really super soon.